You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is brought to you by SparkLab, offering inspiration and practical advice to help businesses find their edge. To hear more about SparkLab, including details about the latest events, workshops, and business tools, visit sparklab.co.nz. And now, here's your host, Simon Pound.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to Business is Boring. Sometimes starting out with a business model that doesn't work can be just what's needed to get on the path to success. Almighty Drinks began with a fresh juice store in Wellington that didn't have the scale or margins to succeed, and by then designing a business that could, it is now in over 1,000 stores and raising to grow further. You might have tried their great fancy turmeric, carrot and orange juice, or their recently launched caffeinated sparkling waters that, without the sugar and the kind of coffee load, are seriously effective. We love them at the brand studio I work at. We're almost an unofficial promo team, serving them with every meeting. So it is a big pleasure to get to talk today to founder CEO Ben Lenart about the journey to here and their plans to grow. Tēnā koe. Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Kia ora, Simon. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so take us back to the beginning there, because you kind of have had a number of jobs in hospo. That kind of juice store came quite late in the piece, really, didn't it? As you started a cafe, was that Milk Crate?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I started Milk Crate in 2005. Quite young, pretty fresh, 22 I was. And yeah, I'd worked in hospo and in food and retail in Wellington for a number of years before that. And, worked at More Wilson's, worked first day at Thornton New World, which was a real big moment on my CV, and worked at Placemakers and was, I'd sort of learnt about hospo working in a bunch of different places. And I actually lived in Melbourne for a little bit, worked as a rubbish truck runner and a labourer. And then came back to Wellington, just really wanted to put a coffee shop on Ghuzney Street, which was a very different place back then. But I sort of thought that it was going to develop into a great sort of little area, and it did happen ultimately, but it did take a lot longer than what I thought it would.
And that's a really legendary cafe, and there was that wonderful Precinct 35 store there, so lots of people will know it. What kind of things did you take from running a cafe to help you with business? As there's so many cool things in hospitality, and the way that you've got to, do the marketing, create a great customer experience, have kind of a brand and an identity, but you're doing it all on like the smell of an oily rag.
Yeah, totally. There's a bunch of things. I mean, building community and building an audience is super important. I think, for us at Almighty, that's been super important, and Milk Crate was a great learning place for that. And it is a lot easier when you're talking to people all day. You might serve 200 to 300 customers a day, and you're building rapport with them. And that was a great learning moment from Milk Crate. There are probably a few other things that you learn from hospitality that are quite useful. Like working at quite a pace. Being quite efficient with your time. Like you see anyone working in a hospital, they're probably moving, like they're moving one part of their body kind of the whole time. They're always doing something useful with their time, and it's very, very efficient, and you're on the go the whole time. And that's kind of translated quite well to working. It's probably not super healthy sometimes, but you also learn to problem solve really quickly in hospo. You get thrown all kind of strange things, from plumbing issues to customer kind of real quirky challenges that you get from customers. But on the same side of that, you learn how to build rapport with all sorts of different people, and that I think is really powerful in business. No matter what industry you're in, it's a great skill to learn.
What did you learn from that first juice store that you opened up that was beautiful and had a lovely product, right, but just didn't have the kind of setup to make it worth all the time? And that's something that some people kind of don't learn fast enough and stay hanging on to things that are low margin, low scale, high pain.
Totally. Yeah, that business was, we loved it. We created great product. We really enjoyed it. It was so good, the product, but it was sort of $7 or $8 for a bottle of juice. It lasted 3 days in the chiller, and it had really short shelf life, so it was super challenging. But what we did learn was flavour development and how important that is in product development, and really nailing that as best as possible. Health is super important, but not always at the expense of flavour. So we had to create everything. We had to create things that tasted great, that were well balanced, that really spoke to a bunch of different sensory aspects. So it needed to, we learnt how important smell, taste, and visuals really are across product development. And we also learnt that from, I suppose, real-time feedback. When you've got a little shop and you're serving customers sort of face-to-face, we were making all sorts of different juices every day, and you get immediate feedback. It was actually really powerful. And, those things translated into Almighty really well, like nailing flavour, nailing balanced product, and getting great feedback as often as possible was super useful.
What was it like to, because it's such a thing. And I've been here with, fashion stores that I've been involved in opening. When you realise that you've put all this effort and love into opening a store, and you've done the fit out, and you've had the opening party, and you've told all your friends, and then you realise, I don't think that this location and these margins are going to work, and we have to change something. What's that process like as an owner? Because so much of identity and stuff goes into setting up these things. But, making that change and then designing a better business has worked out way better. But how did it feel making that change?
Yeah, it was probably more an evolution. Like I'm quite an optimistic person and always looking at the next, how do we make this better? How do we make this better? And I think we created Almighty off the back of that little juice shop, but we continued the juice shop. And then it was probably over time that we sort of absorbed it into the cafe, and then it slowly kind of became less important to the group. But it's not an easy process, right? To have to close something that you've put so much work into and that you genuinely love. But on the other hand, we were creating something even better, and it wasn't too bad. There's that, that idea of Steve Jobs, how, he had to kill the iPod. Right? That was a super successful product. And, but out of that, he killed it because he had the iPhone. And, it's probably just a part of evolution and growth. I think that sometimes you have to get rid of something to create something better.
And what kind of things did you design into Almighty to allow it to kind of grow and scale?
We took a different approach to the product development. So basically we were so focused on, using fresh produce, the best produce we could make, and literally squashing it and putting it in a bottle. And then we took an approach of saying, how can we do something that actually we can send to Australia, and how can we send it to cafes across New Zealand? So we looked at using different ingredients, and we used organic juice from concentrate, which made a massive difference. And it meant that we could send product around the country and outside the country for, with 12 months shelf life, didn't need chilled distribution, was just a whole world away from what we'd been doing.
What was the mission you set out to do with Almighty?
We've got this line, conscious, clean, delicious drinks made by nature for those with a thirst for life, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it sort of sums up really what we're trying to do, and it's still really relevant to what we're doing today. And yeah, it's just creating great products that people love, that are made properly, and for people that love getting out and making the best of their life.
How did you go about getting that spirit into the brand? Because it's really apparent to me that kind of active and vibrant and kind of positive spirit is all through it, right? But, that's not necessarily a given when you make a product. So how did you go about capturing that spirit and mission in your products?
Yeah, well, I think it's happened over time. Like, I'm not a brand building expert, but our experience at Almighty it's been a relatively long one. Well, it's probably short, but 8 years feels like a reasonable time, and it's kind of evolved over time. And we went through a rebranding process maybe in 2019 with Ryan Marks, and that was quite an amazing process to go through, and really elevated, really focused and elevated what we were doing. But it's really telling stories of what's important to us as a team, and telling stories about our audience and their stories and what's important to them. And it's just trying to be really authentic and telling it how it is.
How did you go about getting the first believers and customers to get into cafes? As that's not easy, eh? There's such a limited range of drinks that cafes and hospo can sell. It's hard to get onto grocery shelves. Like, it's a real zero-sum game. There's only so much space, and you've got to have the most compelling kind of story. How did you build that?
When we did our first production run at Almighty, we did, you do all this work in spreadsheets, right, to kind of do this planning, create these forecasts. And there's often numbers in these cells that they're just a number in a cell. And when we did our first production run, we had like 65 pallets of product. And I'd been used to selling 50 or 100 bottles of juice a day. And when I saw the product at the first moment that we had produced all this product, and I was standing in the warehouse at the bottling plant, and I just completely was shitting myself. I couldn't believe how much product we'd made. I thought we'd blown out and done something completely wrong, and was just mortified how much stock we'd created, and I just had to sell it. So I basically literally drove out of the bottling plant and had juice in the boot and just started selling it into cafes on my way home. And just, we just never stopped that, really. We just had to keep going, and you just have to do what you got to do. And so, in cafes, etc., they mostly have a juice and a soda and a few other things, and juice is a pretty decent staple on a menu. So there's a big addressable audience there of cafes. When it came to selling into supermarkets, it was definitely a different story. When we launched our flavoured sparkling water in 2019, I went to, it took 5 or 6 goes to get into kind of each store. So Farrow Fresh, they've been a great supporter of Almighty. But, at the start, they were slightly sceptical of flavoured sparkling water, and took about 5 or 6 goes to get it across the line. And it was super challenging, and that seemed to be a consistent theme across selling into supermarkets. And New World, Countdown, it's just this kind of never-ending challenge. But once you've got some data and some track record, it got a lot easier. But yeah, there's no doubt it was pretty tricky. But to the point, the motivation was there. We just had to move it. We just had so much stock, what I thought was so much stock. Even now, I go into the warehouse and there's 400 or 500 pallets of stock, and I say to my operations person the other day, I was like, why have we got all this stock? This is outrageous. But it's, you're so used to, you get desensitized to the numbers and the spreadsheets, and the reality of it is sometimes confronting.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And let's quickly chat about that sparkling water, as that's really changed the business, eh? And you were really early into that kind of space in New Zealand. And just as things like, LaCroix, which, if anyone's ever been to a Whole Foods in the States, you walk past and there's just the most enormous pallets of this stuff. It's such an institution there. But it hadn't really been part of general kind of office life, the 0-calorie, lightly flavoured, naturally flavoured kind of beverage. What led you to kind of go deep on that? And how did that change the business?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. LaCroix, for me, was, somewhat the inspiration, I suppose, or the reference point for us in New Zealand. I was in New York in I could see LaCroix just being drunk everywhere. It was in like the corner convenience store. It was in the bougie restaurant in Williamsburg, and I was just blown away, like this great product that was so light and, relatively healthy, or more healthy than a sugary soda. And it was just everywhere and so accessible and so flexible as a product. And there was just didn't seem to exist in New Zealand or Australia at the time. And by the time we got from that to getting the product to market, LaCroix had arrived in New Zealand, and then one other player had launched. And so, we thought we were early, but we were not early enough, it turned out, and it took us 3 years to get into Countdown from when we launched. So, we were early, but we weren't first. And it's we had to earn our right to get onto the shelves in supermarkets, which, ultimately has been really good.
And we'll be back shortly to talk building the brand, launching a first caffeinated sparkling water, and what's next for Almighty. Hoki mai anō. Welcome back to Business is Boring, where we're with Ben Lenart of Almighty. So, what does the business look like today?
So we've got a really small team. We've got people in Auckland, Christchurch and Melbourne, total of 7 us at the moment. We're the second fastest growing beverage brand in New Zealand market at the moment, according to IRI, or what's now Circana, I think, behind Musashi. And, we've got really growing very fast at the moment, which is exciting. We've got presence in Australia and Singapore. We've got around 1,500 accounts across those markets. We got B Corp certified last year, which is a very proud moment, and it's been really great for us. We're raising capital at the moment to fund our growth, mostly in Australia through snowball effect. Yeah, and Australia's starting to really turn on for us. We're just landing a few deals across food service and hospitality, which we've been working on for a long time, and then another big deal that we're hopefully close to landing with a national distributor to get us into a bunch of independent retail across Australia. And we're just on that journey of, continuing to build the brand, trying to build something that people love. And it's been a real journey. Hey, but Simon, do you reckon I could ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure. Fire away. Little podcast takeover.
You work for one of the hottest agencies in New Zealand, previously unavailable, and you do a bunch of other things. I'm not 100% sure what you actually do, what your day job is, but maybe you could let us know what your day job is and what your view is on how to create an iconic brand.
Well, my day job is I'm a partner looking after the venture studio and startup brands for previously unavailable. So work with heaps of new things, generally things that kind of are hard to explain or a new idea to get in the world or something that hasn't previously been available. Yeah, and that's heaps of fun. And what makes for a great brand? I think there's a couple of things. Like a brand is an idea that becomes more true over time. And so all the best brands have like a really simple idea that they want to establish in the world. And then they do a lot of stuff to make that true. And it's the doing stuff that makes you a brand. Like you can't just put some words up. You need to kind of stand for something or be trying to do something and then do a lot of things to make that a thing. I think Karen Walker had a great line about brand being like coral, which I always come back to, which is every single little bit of coral by itself that builds up to make something beautiful. So it's thousands and thousands and thousands of little touch points and interactions and ways that people experience you. And the culmination of all those things adding up, that they may not be wildly beautiful individually, but together they end up making something really special.
What a great analogy.
Yeah, she's the best in the business.
Hey, that's awesome. Thank you. And I guess the other question I had, like, you've done this podcast for a long time, and thank you, by the way, for creating this amazing thing that's so New Zealand centric and has given so many people and businesses a great platform to tell their story. So thank you. Through that process, you've interviewed so many amazing people. And what do you think makes a great and successful New Zealand business? Is there like a common thread amongst all these people you've spoken to?
That is so nice of you. Yeah, and it's such a privilege to get to do it because every week getting to talk to someone and hear stuff that's hopefully kind of evergreen, like what they care about and why they got into it and how they felt they made it go, is a real privilege. I guess I'm really concerned about like survivor bias, which is something that, can even make it harder for people getting started or entrepreneurs or people feeling they believe in themselves, because we generally only talk to people who, done pretty well and want to tell their story. And like the thing that people do say and that I've observed is that kind of grit and perseverance, you definitely need to have a good idea and you need to be solving a big problem and you need to build a culture where people who are really good will come and execute and operate and want to be part of it. And that's where kind of, a brand idea or something can come in, like something that in the culture that gets together your customers and team members and partners to all want to help move you forward is something really powerful. But then once you've got that, the thing that separates people, from, because many people can have a good idea and many people can, in theory, build a nice culture. But the thing that seems to help people go all the way is just pure grit and perseverance and just not stopping. And that's a really hard thing to say because I'm sure there's lots of people who've been trying to make like fish ice cream or something and they don't stop and they end up bankrupting themselves and everything's a disaster because the idea wasn't good. But yeah, if you can get like the right kind of validation that it is a good idea, or you believe that things are going to change in the world enough that your idea is going to be the right thing, then it's just bloody-mindedness, I think, is what really gets people to be successful. And that's not always good, because there's a thin line between Steve Jobs and Elizabeth Holmes.
Totally, and there must be a reasonable amount of luck in there. And, connecting with good people is pretty important if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Like being a good person and luck happens if you keep doing the right stuff often enough as well. Like, yeah, but yeah, just keeping on going, which isn't easy.
Yeah, and I think like it's quite relevant for me right now. We're in the middle of raising capital and it's been pretty challenging, but that seems to be a real challenge in New Zealand as well. Like the capital constraints especially for small business. And how important do you think that is?
Yeah, huge. I reckon like the biggest problem that most New Zealand businesses have is that they are undercapitalized. And, we don't have a culture here of investing in business. And there was something that I worked at Vend, and when it sold for, about $500 million, my son, who was like 12 at the time or something, was like, whoa, that's like 500 houses. And it was just the bleakest thing in the world that like we've got this culture that like celebrates houses when they're these unproductive assets and totally useless. And if you take that analogy further, like all of the investment in Vend, which was like 50 million or something over a bunch of years, and it created this massive exit and hundreds of great jobs and all of this experience in the ecosystem and just so many beneficial things. And that's, 50 houses in Swanson, like it's a street and like, it's so bleak that we have this massive culture around investing and caring about houses and not in business. So most people start without enough money. The banks won't give them enough money. People aren't wealthy enough that their families give them enough money. And then everyone's always battling on the back foot because we don't have a big enough market to quickly get enough customers to scale fast. Where, if you're in the US or Australia, Melbourne is bigger than New Zealand. Sydney is the same size as New Zealand. You get some good purchase in one of those places and your customers can help you grow. But here it is access to capital. It's real hard. But how are you going on that capital raise? Because you guys are doing great from what I see. And the pickup that you've got in Australia is awesome.
Yeah, we're getting there. It's been really challenging. I was hoping to get some Australian VC money or decent an investment office on board to help us grow in Australia. That's our key growth market, and having people and networks and access to that through an investment in Almighty would have been great. And we actually have brought on some awesome Australians that have been very helpful. But this round we're going a bit bigger. And so, we're working with Snowball Effect, and we've had heaps of interest. It's been, awesome. We're really stoked. But, we'll just see how we go. We're sort of midway through the process. Actually, after this call, I've got quite a big investment call that hopefully I'll nail. But, I'm so lucky. I've got great investors on board so far. I've got a bunch of friends and family that, make sure I definitely need to make this work. But also, some other great people that, to your point earlier, I'm so thankful that they have invested in our business and not gone out and bought another investment property. And it's so important in this ecosystem that hopefully I get these guys a really great return, and more of these stories, like the Venn story, that highlight to investors and people with money and assets and the ability to make a difference, that they actually do back founders and up-and-coming small businesses that, are ambitious and have a great team, have a great plan that can deliver a way better return than just another investment property. We're getting there. Hopefully it's a really good outcome and just helps us grow, because that's our only constraint, to be honest. We've got so much growth dialed in Australia in particular, and in New Zealand. It's just having the capital to support it.
Yeah, and I don't think capital here is very experienced in brands and consumer products. It takes a lot to create an inventory business and do the marketing and the work to kind of establish a brand. And you don't get the hockey stick, financial returns back, even if you're getting the hockey stick purchase and stocking returns. If it's all going to plan, you actually have bigger cash flow problems and bigger difficulties. And because people don't understand that, brands, unlike, software companies or something, they build relationships with thousands and thousands of people who then keep buying them for years and years and years. They become more valuable in the long term rather than, just in the short term. So it's it's a tricky spot to be in. But that's the beauty of crowdfunding, right? People who believe in what you do and know the product and understand the role it plays in people's lives, they can back you. And that's worked so well for Atik and Parrot Dog and Vivo and other kind of great companies with a big customer base. Well, what's it like having the customers as advocates and owners?
I mean, it's great, right? You've got ambassadors, telling their friends, taking a little six-pack to a barbecue or to a party and pushing it. I think that's been really good for Parrot Dog, I'm sure. Yeah, it's a great model. I think, there's a missing tier above that. I think there's a strong crowdfunding environment, and in New Zealand, Snowball Effect has been great for that. But there's that next level up, and the next level above that is missing. I'm involved in a great little organisation community called Future Food Aotearoa that are building connections to other markets, and we are looking at, especially at the US, and it's just a world away, the kind of startup and capital ecosystem in that market and a bunch of other markets. New Zealand needs to really get on board with what's happening in the rest of the world.
Yeah, and successes like yours and people like Compostic and people like Lisa King at AF Drinks, those people actually succeeding and getting on the shelves of the big US retailers, they help to kind of pave the way for people believing that's possible. But I think if people just have a New Zealand, Australia mindset, it is hard to look at them and go, where does the return come?
Totally. For us, we're so focused on Australia and New Zealand because we actually think there's a great business just in these two markets, but it's more just a focus. We looked at the US, and it's big, and it's you need a decent chunk of investment, and it's a long-term play. It's a big call, whereas we're just focused on the next 2 years, what we have to execute and what happens beyond that will get pretty exciting. I think, international markets. But Lisa King and AF Drinks, that's such a great story. They've done so well. It's awesome to see. And the likes of Fix and Fog, and there are a few great stories. It's also it's a big call, and we just need to get our shit together in Australia and New Zealand first, and then tackle some big ones.
Yeah, where do you see it going? What's the vision for where Almighty could be? And I mean, that caffeinated water is such a great and unique product on the shelves as well. And it's delicious, and it gives you such a buzz. I'm normally a long black drinker, and I find that one of those just sends me to space.
Yeah, I think it's a great product, and people love it, that are into it. It's actually been a really challenging thing to launch into a new category and be first. We'd probably underestimated that the education required, even though it's really straightforward. It's just sparkling water, natural flavour, and 80 milligrams of natural caffeine. It has been challenging to get that education piece right. But, if we do get it right, it sort of really can take on that energy drink market, which is an absolute, beast of a category.
And so much of it is just so bad for you. You look at the ingredients in any energy drink, and it's torture. It's just stuff that your body is not built to deal with in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, most of the words, I've got no idea what all those words mean or what they are, what those things are. They can't be that good for you.
Yeah, not at all. What advice would you have for someone wanting to build a brand with such a design-led edge?
I think getting great industry experience in the mix, people that have done it before, has made a difference to our business. I think in New Zealand there are some great agencies, and great design agencies, and not just that make beautiful things, but have really great depth of knowledge of the why and behind brands. I've never worked with Previously Unavailable, but you guys seem like you're doing amazing things. And there are a bunch like Mark's who we work with. There's just so much thinking in behind what is going on. It's not
great.
Just creating nice looking packaging or anything. There's a real depth of thought that goes into it, and that is respected globally. We're so lucky to have such good agencies here, and I'd recommend talking to people not just in design but with industry experience. So when we brought people into our business with really specific, strong industry experience, it was a game changer for us.
Yeah, and as a final thought, because you've got an investor call to get to, what will success be for you and for Almighty?
For Almighty, we're really focusing on, hoping to build an iconic brand in New Zealand and Australia that people just love, and creating a great business. It's been really challenging, especially in the last few years, to create that great business side. And there's a lot of learning that's going on to overcome a bunch of escalating costs, and how to deliver to all the the unsexy parts of a business that create profitability, and nailing those things. So we want to create a great brand and a great business. But as I mentioned, I've got these really great shareholders that have come on, that have taken a punt on some scrappy person and people, and I'd love to give them a return. They've really backed us, and hopefully the people that are coming on board now with this capital raise, I'd love to just deliver a great result. And so success hopefully are those things, a great brand and some kind of great result along the way. And then for me personally, I've got a young family, and it's really about, I suppose, creating and getting to the point where there are these freedoms to do, to hang out with them more, and I suppose live the life that I'd love to see them, to live in New Zealand and enjoy all those great parts of New Zealand that we seem to sort of miss a bit when you end up working too much, and trying to get that work-life balance right. And that's what success will be for me.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing the story today. Best of luck for the capital raise that's live on Snowball Effect at the moment if people are believers in what Almighty is doing. And lovely to chat and can't wait to see where you take it next. That's Ben Lenart, the CEO at Almighty Drinks.
Thanks so much, Simon. It's been really good.
So thank you to Ben, to you for listening, and for everyone who helps make this happen, like our producer, Te Aihe Butler. Do follow Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to rate and leave a review if you like what we do. E noho rā.
From the Spinoff Podcast Network, that was Business is Boring, brought to you by SparkLab. Make sure you're following Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on SparkLab, visit sparklab.co.nz.